Welcome to the Military Exchange, and I am the aforementioned host, Corporal Tim Thornton, and I am here today with Miss Teresa Wood, the director of the Patriot Camp in Churchville, New York. And Teresa, if you would tell us a little bit about your camp and all the characters that are going to be on the show, and just a little bit about everything you do.
Sure, I'd love to. I purchased a curriculum through Constitutional Champions, Patriot Camp, and these Patriot Camps are held all over the United States. And I thought it would be a good idea to do one in Churchville, New York. And so last year we held our first Patriot Camp, and we educated 50 children at the founding of our country, and we'll be doing it again this year. And I'll just tell you a little bit about the camp. It's a really fun way to teach kids about the founding of our country, and they have fun while they develop an interest in history and in America. Each day begins with a 20-minute opening ceremony. We have a prayer, the pledge, flag etiquette, and so the kids learn about that. Sometimes we have soldiers come in. As a matter of fact, the 4th of July is our Founding Fathers Friday. I should back up. The camp runs this year from June 30th through July 4th, and it's just in the morning. It runs from 9 to 11:30 a.m. And on Friday of that week, it's very special. It's July 4th, and we will be having a Founders Day picnic, and some of our founders coming in, founding fathers and mothers, and they're here with us tonight, and I'll introduce them to you in a second. But anyway, so the opening ceremony, and then there's stations that the kids rotate through. There's 3 learning stations, all named like Yorktown, Lexington, Boston, and those are learning stations. But in those learning stations, there are all kinds of hands-on activities, such as George Washington crossing the Delaware. We fill a big pool full of water and chunks of ice, and we challenge the kids to see how long they can stay in that ice-cold water, because as you know, I don't know if you don't, but George Washington did cross the Delaware, and there were chunks of ice, and so that's just something that brings history alive to them. So they go through the learning stations, and then they also have a craft station where they make root beer, tricorn hat, all kinds of great things. Snack time, and that's all appropriate for the time too. For example, they have popcorn one day, and the colonialists ate popcorn lots of times for breakfast with sugar. So we tie in the idea of a colonial snack as well. One day they have pretzels, and the idea behind the pretzel was it started as a praying hands and then turned into the twist that you see in the pretzel. So, and every day they have lemonade, that kind of thing. And then there's games, a station of games, where they'll do like a Minuteman relay, old-fashioned sack races. The kids just have a ball. They just loved it. So I told you when it was, Monday, June 30th through Friday, July 4th, and it's at our American Legion in Churchville this year. The address there is 6444 Buffalo Road, and it's for kids ages 5 through 12. So if you have a kindergartner right up through 5th grade, they're welcome to come, and we have a lot of volunteers as well. Registration is $35. It includes a t-shirt and lots of giveaways. This is what our shirt looked like last year. This year it's going to be a red, white, and blue theme because it's a 4th of July week. And registration forms you can get through me. Should I say my number and name on? Is it okay to do that? Okay.
Sure.
So Teresa Wood, and my phone number is 585-293-3124. Or you can email me at C, as in Charlie, cwood004@rochester.rr.com. And one other little piece there, we do have a blog, and that is Patriot Camp, one word, .wordpress.com. And I believe this little video will be on there at some point, so you'll be able to see the whole thing. So that's my little spiel, and I can introduce the characters, but I just wanted to give you one little tidbit, a little bit of a flavor of the camp. I bring this out and show this when I'm teaching history myself, and this was called a sad toy, because in colonial times, nearly half of all children died before they were 6 years old. And so this was a way for the parents to teach the children about death and help them understand that one of their brothers and sisters they would probably see in a coffin like this sometime. And so we call it the sad toy, but it's a very interesting piece. This is not a reproduction, it's just something I threw together, but it does what it's supposed to do. So tonight, you are going to have the treat of meeting some of our founding fathers and helpers, and we have General George Washington with us tonight. He'll be coming out to talk to you. And we have a Minuteman, Francis Perry, who is a Minuteman. And we have a Son of Liberty, John Hancock. And let's see, we have Abigail Adams. And then also we have Alice Zorn, who is this year going to be doing something really neat. And during one of our segments, she's going to be introducing little tidbits of women in the Revolutionary War and their role that they played. So I think we should get started with these guys. Who we want to bring out first? Let's see. Let's have our Minuteman come out. Francis Perry.
Well, I'm Francis Perry, and I have a farm in Churchville, about 30 acres. Maybe you don't know about Minutemen, but Minutemen are not really soldiers. They were sort of like farmers. They had to drop everything at a moment's notice and go out and fight a battle against Indians or maybe the French or whoever it would be, and that's what we had to do. And as we sort of chased those French and Indians off of our property, and now this is our land here, and my farm is just over the hill there, about 30 miles or so from here. And as I say, we're a hardy group, and we're dressed for plowing the fields rather than fighting a war. So anybody got any questions about?
Mr. Perry, could you show the audience the rifle?
I certainly could. This is known as a Brown Bess rifle. I guess it's 1753 when it was manufactured, and the irony of it is it was made in England, you know, and here we're using it to fight off the British, and this is one of their pieces of equipment. They're quite heavy to carry, and this is a flintlock, and the way you fire them, a lot of times you just pull this back like this, and then you put your powder in here, and of course you put your bullet down the bore, pull this back, and then you aim it, and hopefully we get a spark off of it, and it really ignites the fire in the pan, and hopefully you're going to hit something with it.
You know, it's funny that I don't mean to have this many comments, but it was known back then that a crossbow was more accurate than a musket.
True.
But the musket put the fear into the enemy. And that's why we went to this instead of staying with crossbows.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. A lot of times too, you had a bayonet on the end of this, and if your powder didn't fire, well, you had that bayonet on the end, and that's a pretty persuasive piece of equipment, I tell you. You're looking at a bayonet. So.
What did you eat along the way? What did you bring your own things with you?
Well, most of the time we brought our hardtack with us. We had in our haversacks here, and a little dried corn. And believe me, we had to go a long time between meals, and we didn't know when we were going to get our next meal or so, and we just sort of, when we had opportunity, we had maybe a chance to sit down and pull out some corn from your haversack and have a little snack while you're waiting, you know. By the way, this is one of the bullets. It's hard to believe, but it has the powder in it, and it has a lead ball that we would take, and I showed you how to fire the gun, but this went right down the bore here with the bullet in it, and with the ramrod you pull that out, stuff this thing down there, and then you'd have to really punch it down tight so that the powder would be up in this area here where it would fire and spark. And you put the powder in this pan here after you had it in there, and you had it pretty well tight in there, and you'd pull this back down, and that would capture the powder so that the powder wouldn't fall out of the gun. And if it was raining, you're in a lot of trouble. So you hope for a dry day to fire this thing. And then we would just, it had a couple positions. It was, pull it back, this is full cock, this is half cock. You ever heard the term going off half cock?
Oh.
Well, that's a half cock. So again, it's quite a piece of machinery for that era. So,
Mr. Perry.
Thank you.
Well, my name is John Hancock, and I was one of the Sons of Liberty. And also, could be said that I was one of the original philanthropists in the United States. I signed the Declaration of Independence very largely and lavishly because I wanted King George to look at that and say, wow, we're not going to mess with them. It was nice and big right at the bottom. I was the first to sign, and that lavish signature was also a reflection of my lifestyle. Well, I did want to fight. I really did want to fight, but my good friends somehow managed to talk me out of that. they wanted me to fight with my money. And so I really did take care of our guys in the war, bought a fire engine for Boston, and helped them out in those ways.
That's very good. That's great. Okay, who's next? Thank you, Mr. Hancock.
Okay, I'm George Washington. I was named Commander-in-Chief of the Patriot Forces in 1775. Congress decided they needed somebody with experience, and I happened to go to the Congress in my uniform, and they thought that qualified me to be Commander-in-Chief. There were others that wanted to be Commander-in-Chief, General Gates, who fought for the British, and General Lee, who fought for the British, but neither of those seemed to make as much influence as I did. So John Adams nominated me, and I was unanimously selected to become Commander-in-Chief of the forces. So I headed down to Boston, and this was after Bunker Hill. I didn't realize that Bunker Hill had taken place. Actually, it was Breed's Hill, but we'll continue to call it Bunker Hill. And I arrived, and I found about 20,000 militiamen, like Frank, where we are, Frank. And they were from all over the eastern part of our country. They came up from Virginia, they came from Pennsylvania, they came from Connecticut. And actually, they were not soldiers. They were far from being soldiers. So that it took some time to gather our forces together. And the one thing I did, and one thing that is very important for leadership, is to surround yourself with strong, competent people. So that I was able to get some generals to give me some assistance in trying our best to support the efforts that we were trying to make. And we sent Colonel Knox up to Fort Ticonderoga to get some cannons, and we brought those cannons back during the wintertime and put them on Dorchester Height above the Boston, city of Boston, and the British were there, and General Gage was trying to decide what to do, whether he should come out and attack us or whether he should stay and wait for reinforcements to come from England. Well, we put those cannons up on top of the Dorchester Heights, aimed them right down at the city of Boston, and the problem was we didn't have any ammunition. So, but we scared the living daylights out of the British. They jumped on their ships and left Boston Harbor. But they destroyed most of the city. They just destroyed Harbor Light, or Boston Light. They did a lot of damage on the way out, and they did go to Newport, Rhode Island, and gathered their forces together and then headed for New York City. They sent word back to England that they needed more troops. So more troops did come, and they all congregated on Staten Island, down just outside of New York City. And so we took our troops and marched them down to Long Island, and we congregated in a community called Brooklyn. And so we managed to hold the British off for a while, and until they decided, well, they'll come at us in force. We had about 20,000 troops, militia, and not necessarily troops. So the British had the strongest military unit in the world. They had ships, they had guns, they had ammunition, they had cannons, they had everything. Plus they had Hessians. And Hessians were very lethal fighters. They were not anybody to mess with. So anyway, we surrounded ourselves on Brooklyn Heights, and the British came at us, and sure enough, the British did end up driving us back. So on dead of night, we escaped from Brooklyn, headed over to Manhattan, and the British would have been smart to attack us before we had a chance to get across the East River, but they were kind of reluctant. They were probably a little bit arrogant and figured, well, they'll wait in the morning and pick us up and pick us off in the morning, which they didn't do. Well, anyway, we fought our way back up through Manhattan Island, and we lost a battle at Fort Washington, we lost a lot of equipment there. We lost a lot of very good men at Fort Washington. Then we made our way up to White Plains, and again we got knocked the heck out of White Plains, so we headed over into New Jersey and headed towards Trenton. And as we went down to Trenton, we finally decided that it's time, because the enlistments of our militia was going to be up. So this is where our major emphasis on camp this summer is going to be, is called the Crossing. So where we did pick up ourselves and gather our forces together, cross the Delaware River, and this was the day after Christmas. We did it on Christmas night, made our way down, and the Hessians were a little bit asleep. And did we knock the snot out of them? I'll tell you, we beat them so badly. We captured 900 of their soldiers, and in the whole process, we did not lose a single soldier to battle. We lost 2 due to weather. They froze to death, which was sad. But at this point, I'll stop because we could go on, because this is a great thing to do and the kids would love it. So,
That's
Teresa,
great.
back to you.
Thank you. Great job, General Washington. That's right. Yeah. He knows so much, and he brings us to camp with him. You know, the kids just love to hear all about that. So, do we ready for our next one?
3 minutes left.
3 minutes. Okay.
2.5.
Abigail Adams. Right in here.
Well,
How
ma'am.
do you do, Mike?
Very good. How are you, ma'am?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me today. I'm Abigail Adams, and my husband, second president of our new country. I'm also the mother of a president and a grandmother of a very political-minded family we have. Yes, some people do call me Mrs. President. I did have an influence with John and the Continental Congress, and I'd like to tell you how I did that.
I'd like to hear that, ma'am.
John and I were avid letter writers, and I wrote to John every evening. You know, the men were called away so often. They were only home for short periods of time. And we women, during the War of Independence, kept the homes safe, welcomed people in who were immigrants on the road. When they didn't have food, we kept our farm was very, very well handled. We had hired workers, no slaves. We hired workers. I even purchased land in John's name. You know, women could not own land, but I purchased it in John's name. We had 180 acres, a wonderful apple orchard, and our farm animals could feed all those who left Boston during the time of the Battle of Lexington. But my husband and I wrote constantly to each other. I had to be careful. Our letters could be intercepted, and do you know the British could read them? So we were careful. So I talked about the children and their health and our schooling. You know, we did school at home. Most of our schools for our boys were closed during the time of the battles, but we kept on with our studies. And you know, my father, he was a wonderful congregational minister, and I am a minister's daughter. So our life was simple, but very well comfort. Comfort was important to us. Our family was important. And John and I kept that in our letters. And when he was gone for 4.5 years as an ambassador over in Europe, trying to help the colonies with winning the war, and then the treaty, to negotiate the peace treaty, finally my daughter and I set sail to join him when he became minister in France and then in London. So I've had a very interesting life. But I have to tell you, I'm so happy to be back home in peaceful Peace Field. This is our retirement home in Braintree, Massachusetts. Isn't that a funny name for a town? Braintree. But it's very comfortable and we love it. And thank you so much for honoring my husband, because I feel very proud that we were of service to our new country. And thank you for having me.
Thank you, ma'am. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you very much. And please, do remember the ladies. Whenever you do write laws, include the women and think of how they should be cared for as well as liberated to serve as well as our men. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you.